Welcome to the Millennial Rant, a podcast about whatever's bothering me today. With topics ranging from politics to pop culture, there's a rant to cover everyone. For more Millennial Rant content, you can join me on the web at millennialrant.com. First off, for all of you who are concerned, because I know there were just so many of you, I was able to work out the issue with my microphone without having to get a new microphone. So, not retired, same mic, now working. We figured each other out. We're back to, being buddies. So it should be smooth sailing from now on. Anyway, for those of you who may have been following me for a while, or who might have gone back to the previous season because you wanted to, I guess, last year I did an episode on Adel and Kalin because I was just kind of done with all of the heavy everything, and I just wanted to rant about something that was I was, personally passionate about, and that I didn't have really a platform to rant about up until that point, but now I have a podcast, and so I can rant about whatever I want to. Yeah, we're doing another one of those. Not about Adel, Kalin. I feel like I've said what is to be said about that, and now I just have to wait for book 5 to come out. Hopefully Brandon Sanderson watched my video last year and is going to implement said idea. But no, now I'm on something completely different. Well, almost completely different. It's still a story, and it's still a side trip, and it's still largely irrelevant, and there are going to be a lot of spoilers. So brace yourself. I'm going to be talking about Bleach. For those of you who are not 90s millennial anime fans, Bleach was a very popular manga that came out mid 2000s-ish, around the same time as Naruto, a little bit later than Naruto. Naruto started, I don't know. Anyway, so there were 3 main big time mangas that were launched in Japan within a few years of each other, and they lasted a long time. And these in America were known as the Big 3. Nobody in Japan ever called them that, but in America they were known as the Big 3. And that was Naruto, it was Bleach, and One Piece. And of the 3, One Piece is the only one that is still going. And of the 2 that have finished, I was fairly satisfied with the way that Naruto turned out, except for the whole, I don't know, it kind of like went off the rails a little bit at the end. Like, Kishimoto sensei couldn't really get a handle on it, and so he just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going, and then he's just like, you know what? Reincarnation. Yep. And we're going to put a pin in that, and that's how we're going to end it. But, pretty much all of the characters that I shipped got together, so that was great. There was no real major uncomfortable dangling plot threads, which was nice. It was laid out in such a way that he could continue it if he wanted to, and has since done so. I have not really read Boruto or watched it, partly because I think Boruto is a really stupid name. But, that's fine. You do you, Kishimoto sensei. Actually, I have been reading the time skip Blue Vortex or whatever it is. And it's actually, I've been enjoying it. There's like 4 updates so far. Anyway, that's not the point. Like I said, I'm talking about Bleach. So, as you might have guessed from that rambling nonsense, Bleach did not end well. And it was kind of written in the sand for a while, but as fans of like 15 years, like literally it was 15 years from start to finish, we kind of hoped that he would be able to like hit a last minute grand slam or something. That didn't happen. So to really kind of delve into this and let you feel my pain, I'm going to have to explain a little bit about my relationship with Bleach. I first got into Bleach when I was about Oh, let's see. It was when we moved from Virginia to Ohio. So I was about 16, 17 years old, and I started buying Shonen Jump, and Naruto was in there, Bleach was in there, Prince of Tennis was in there. All of the good, like, 2000s classics were in there. And that was my first real introduction. Up until this point, the only real shonen I had seen, because I hadn't read any of the manga, it was Yu Yu Hakusho. Still love that show. Will, to my dying breath, be rewatching it. But I kind of got into Bleach because of the very loose connections it has with Yu Yu Hakusho, and that it deals with the paranormal and, you know, what a little bit of what, at least in Yu Yu Hakusho's case, a little bit of what happens when you pass on. And there's a lot of Japanese lore tied into it. It was really cool. And so there was some similarities with the way Bleach unfolded, and I thought, I'll look into this. And around the same time I got into Naruto and a little bit into One Piece, I ended up not being able to truly commit to One Piece. It just, it takes a lot of commitment. But I loved Bleach. Of the three of them, that was my jam. Okay? Like, I got so crazy into Bleach. I would read fan essays. I would, do the whole internet stalking thing, is so insofar as internet stalking was a thing before 2010. And to figure out all of the different nuances. Had I missed anything that had been released in Japan? Like, had Kishimoto, or not Kishimoto, it's Naruto, Kubo. Had Kubo Sensei done anything? Like, had he said anything like that could be construed as something? What movies were coming up? What filler were they putting into the anime? Like, I was like all in on Bleach. Okay, loved Bleach, and it's not so much because it's a well told story, because it definitely has some serious flaws, but the characters, specifically Ichigo and Rukia, their dynamic, the way that they interact, the purpose of who they are, and how they grow both together as friends and independently as individuals, it just resonated, right? You look at that and you think, that is the kind of relationship that I want. And Kubo Sensei is really good at connecting you to people and making you care about what's happening to them, even if what's happening to them doesn't always necessarily make sense. And there's kind of a joke that there's really only one arc in Bleach, and it just like keeps getting recycled over and over and over again. I mean, it's not untrue. But it doesn't matter, because you're not in it for the story as much as you're in it for the characters, and you're rooting for them. You want them to be able to succeed in whatever it is that is thrown at them. So there's one major overarching storyline in the first, I'm not even going to say half, I would say 2/3 of Bleach. And that is Ichigo going to Soul Society and finding out that, spoilers, his dad is a soul reaper, and he was he's been tied up in this like crazy history that with this horrible bad guy, and ultimately he has to go from being a complete novice 15-year-old human boy to finding out he has superpowers, to doing the whole training montage and going through all of to get to the other side so that he can fight the big bad and win. And that culminating arc is called the Winter War. So well done. Loved it so much. Anyway, that's kind of a hard stopping point. Like, it could easily have ended there, and nobody would really have been upset, other than the fact that we would be disappointed that it was done. But it came full circle. It answered all of our major burning questions. There wasn't anything that really felt unfulfilled or untapped. I mean, again, there would have been a lot of ways that he could have expanded on it to make a sequel if he wanted to, but it wasn't necessary. It felt finished. And then he did a time skip. And our first introduction to this time skip was not great. It was clunky and a bit all over the place. And if you've never been introduced to Bleach in any way whatsoever, Ichigo, the main character, he's, half human, half Shinigami, half Quincy, half Fullbringer. I mean, the math just doesn't math. But you don't really care that he's like this just walking Mary Sue character because you just love him so much. Or at least I do. And you just want to know what's going to happen to him and how he's going to reconnect with Rukia, who he had to separate from at the end. And so I was invested, if only to see how he gets back into being a Soul Reaper and reintroduced to Rukia and all of the craziness that goes on there. And he does. He gets reintroduced to Rukia, and I didn't like the fact that they chopped her hair off for some reason, but otherwise it was beautiful and I loved it. And I thought the reunion itself was well done. And then we get, I don't even know the official name of the arc because I just cared that little. It's the Quincy War arc or something. Blood War. 1,000-Year Blood War. It was stupid. Pretty much from start to finish. It was dumb. But again, I was invested because I cared about the characters. I wanted to see what would happen to them. I wanted to see how this was all going to play out. Also, I wanted to see whether Ichigo was going to become God, because at this point, there seemed like no other way that it could possibly end with all of the halves of him coming together, right? Like, if he's half everything, obviously he's full God, right? Anyway, so you get down to like the final battle, and a few things happened that just were alarming to me as a storyteller and as a fan. And, all of a sudden, Ichigo's mental mentor, his sword, it's a Bleach thing. His sword is suddenly not his actual sword. His sword is the monster that was inside of him the whole time that he's been trying to suppress. And so the sword that we've come to know and love disappears, and he ends up, using the monster sword. And so it changes the way that his sword looks in reality, and the change is really dumb. And then his Bankai, which was so cool. I mean, just simple black robe. He's so freaking fast. Like, gorgeous long black blade, which I own and now is superfluous because his Bankai has changed. Not a fan. But the real kicker, the thing that ruined basically the entirety of Bleach for me, start to finish, is literally the last chapter. Because in the second to last chapter, like I said, we're in the middle of this big old grand fight, and things are happening over here, and things are happening over there, and things are happening with Ichigo, and things are happening with Rukia, and things are happening with their friends, and none of it's really resolved. Like, there are people who might have died, who I was really invested in. Urahara and Yoruichi, like, did they die? Did they not die? There was never addressed. Like, there was like a one shot that happened later that showed them. I don't know. It just like, what happened to these people? Because loose plot threads everywhere. It's just like, I mean, it's like somebody was making a beautiful tapestry, and at the end they're just like, I don't need to finish. It's fine. You can more or less tell what's happening. And then they don't even tie everything off. They just leave the ends of the tapestry just hanging there to unravel. It's Hmm. But the real kicker, is that in the final chapter, Rukia and Ichigo do not get married and make babies. Instead, they marry other people and make babies, and it makes no sense in the story. Like, none at all. And people say, well, Ichigo and Rukia's relationship was never romantic. Okay. It was never overtly romantic, that is true. But I can tell you straight up that Ichigo and Orihime, the girl he married, their relationship was in no way at all romantic. In fact, any time romance started to crop up between them, it was either deliberately thwarted or like ignored, or it was just like brushed aside. And so you have like this ending that is not an ending, and then a 10 years later flash into the future, and none of it makes any sense. None of it makes any sense. Like, Chad is a prize fighter? What? Like, his whole thing was like he would only ever fight to protect people and for the good of all, and then it's like Ishida is a doctor, but he's just like all on his own, and he's not allowed to have friends or family anymore. And Yuzu is Ichigo's little sister, by the way. Yuzu is apparently like sexually attracted to her brother. It was all cringy gross. All of it. I hated everything about it. And even if I was a fan of Ichigo and Orihime, and believe me, they had plenty of fans, even if I was, I feel like I would have been upset and disappointed by the way that it ended, because there was just no buildup. It was like you blow up a balloon and you just keep blowing and blowing and blowing and blowing and blowing and blowing, waiting for it to pop. But it doesn't pop because it turns out you were never blowing it up in the first place. It was so weird. So confusing. And the thing that irks me the most about this whole thing is that if Kubo-sensei had ended it with the Winter War, with, Ichigo and Rukia having their heart-wrenching fond farewell, and then did a flash forward 10 years into the future and it was basically the exact same thing, I would have been okay with it. I mean, I would have been disappointed that my ship didn't get together, but I would have been like, you know what, it's been 10 years, I never thought they would see each other again, blah, 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 it's all good. And I would have been able to be like, you know what, it fits, it works. Even if basically nothing had changed, I would still be okay with it. But it was so bad. It was so bad. Because he brought it all back. He brought Ichigo and Rukia back. He brought their relationship back. He brought their friendship back. He brought, everybody. It's just bad writing, bad storytelling, and bad characterization. If you write your characters in such a way that they feel so alive and so real and so true, and then you go completely against that character that you've established to fulfill whatever it is, and you know what? It's Kubo-sensei's story, ultimately. It really is. It's his story, and he should tell it the way that he wanted to tell it, and he was sick at the time, and he was just trying to push through it. There are all sorts of reasons why the Blood Arc was a mess, okay? But it's unfair to fans who dedicated 15 years of their lives to this story to just have it crumble at the end and be told, well, just eat it. Eat it anyway. Your cake fell on the floor and it's not a clean floor at all, but at least it's cake. Eat it anyway. And I'll never not be mad about it. That's just straight up the case. And worse still is the fact that now that I do know how it ends, I can't reread it and have any sense of genuine immersive pleasure. The whole story has been ruined for me, and I hate that so much. I feel like a lot of Bleach fans who do reread the series basically just reread up to the end of the Winter War, and that's it. As far as they're concerned, that's all that exists. And there are things that I disliked about the Fullbring arc and about the Blood War arc, but ultimately they're still Bleach, and they felt like Bleach. It was just the ending. And because the ending was so terrible and it has so thoroughly tainted me, I can't enjoy something that was a huge part of my life for 15 years. So much a huge part of my life that almost 10 years now after it's over, I still am not over it. I will never not be mad about it.